Talks. Oh, the recording is progress. Okay, just put away this button. Yeah, I brought Charlie, as I said, and Pedro, and the topic today is digital marketing and digital communication, trends and direction. I think everybody of us in the industry, if it's a brand or manufacturer or a dealer or a publisher, stands or is faced with new challenges in marketing and communication, and it's not that easy anymore like it was maybe 10 to 15 years ago. So I think it's a good topic to talk about with the industry, and we have here two special guests who I would say they have the experience and the knowledge in two different kinds of businesses. Charlie as a host of Fieldsports Channel, which is, in my opinion, the biggest channel, TV channel we have in Europe. Then we have Pedro, who stands for KUYU as a brand ambassador. It's a very young brand, but with a clear brand core. And what we want to talk about today is that we really to see what kind of situation are we faced off as a company in the gun industry. So especially in digital marketing, can we play with the big guys like Google or Facebook, or do we have shift a little bit around and have to create our own channels and platforms, and what kind of things will come with that? And the other thing is what does it mean to us as in terms of marketing? So what kind of challenge do we have in positioning our brands, to tell our story, and what it makes completely different? And I would say we start with Charlie. Charlie, we know us now for longer than 10 years. I'm in the industry now for almost 16 years. You are even longer in the industry. So I would say in Germany, we have a good Sprichwort, which is called Alter vor Schönheit. So I would say you start with a short introduction about you. You are the host of Fieldsports Channel. You have a long experience in media and publishing in England, in UK. So I think it's better if you introduce yourself. I mean, you know exactly what you're doing, and I would give the word to you first.
Thank you, Jan. What a lovely introduction. Yes, I've known Jan for a very long time. I think we were about 12 years old when we first met, working for Zeiss. Now, it's very easy, I think, to say, my company is fantastic. It does all these wonderful things. And I think one of the things that's come out of the digital revolution is how important it is to make mistakes. And so I will try and talk about some of the mistakes I've made just for a couple of minutes as an introduction. So Fieldsports Channel is a weekly TV show on YouTube. It's a magazine show, so it consists of 5 or 6 items, and it goes out on Wednesdays, 7 p.m. UK time. And the idea for it came about because I used to work for traditional hunting magazines in the UK. We had a very large publisher in the 1990s called IPC Magazines, and it specialized in producing a magazine that really went to the heart of your life. If you were a hunter, a golfer, if you like boats, whatever it was. I mean, it told you everything you needed to know, and as a result, it soaked up a lot of advertising. It was very largely paid for by advertising. Now, I noticed, and this is perhaps trying to pretend to be something better than I am. I noticed that people seem to fall out of love with magazines. Maybe after Facebook came along, it was very hard to say, but people didn't like magazines as much in the early 2000s as they did in the 1990s. And I was very lucky. I met a guy from one of our TV stations, ITV, and we agreed to try and collide these two things: the weekly specialist consumer magazine and television. Now, we thought YouTube was a really stupid idea because, it was all about skateboarding cats in 2009. There was no point in getting involved with it. And I mean, we're very lucky we did get involved with it at all, because thanks to YouTube, the hunting channels on YouTube now have the largest audience that the world of hunting has ever seen. And really, it's been a question of how to turn that into something of benefit to the gun trade, to the the hunting industry. And I think there's a couple of things to go in on there. First of all, you have to be very clear that what it is that media does for you. It provides just three things: audience, endorsement, and production quality. So something that's nice to look at, a lot of eyeballs, and somebody on that television saying something good about a product. That's the first thing. I think the second most important lesson is print, the magazines, which I used to work for. They have been working for 600 years. So they really know how to sell stuff. And we have only been working in our space for 10, 15 years. It's been a journey. I think the internet has enormous potential. I think we still have a lot of things to find out about how we can use it to sell, but we're not there yet. So just bear those two things in mind. When MTV, the music TV station, launched in 1980, I remember one of the founders saying, "This is the end of television as we know it. Television will never be the same again." 30 years later, I heard him talking. He said, in 30 years, the people from the old world of television have continued to make a lot of money. So, just because there's digital does not mean it is the end of publishing. It just means there is a change. And that, I think, is what we're here to talk about today. Is it, Dan? Is that right?
Completely right, what you're saying. Yeah. All right. You're done, Charlie, or you want
I'm done. Well, I know I can go on for hours, I'm afraid, but I've got to let you do some talking.
Oh, perfect. Then I will switch over to Pedro. He's our other guest from Spain. Pedro, you are working for KUIU, a brand which stands for ultralight hunting clothing to hunt in the mountains. And I think there's nobody else in the European hunting industry right now or business who stands for just one brand like you do. So maybe you can give us a little introduction by yourself, how you came to this job, and what are you doing all the time?
Yes, so I'm from Spain, 34 years old. Hunter, I started as a journalist and video producer like 15 or 10 years ago. First producing videos for TV and also producing content for brand and magazines. That being said, I'm mechanical engineer by trade, which is definitely not my passion. And it took me a while until I could work full-time in the industry. That it was like around 6 years ago when I started working for KUIU. We do also have like a communication company with my wife that she's also a huntress and she's specialized in marketing, that we work with brands, producing content and helping them grow the brands. No? Apart from engineering, I have studied photography, videography, and I have also studied digital marketing. That is also my passion, and I think it's key these days. In terms of KUIU, my role in KUIU is the European Manager of Brand Development. So the goal is to grow an American brand in Europe, which I bet that most of the people know the challenges because we are a bunch of different countries, different languages, cultures. So it's a tricky job to grow an American brand in Europe, especially when there are players that have been in the industry for decades and hundreds of years. No? What's KUIU? For the people that don't know KUIU is a technical mountain clothing brand made in the USA that started 10 years ago. So it's super new or 10 or 50. I think it's 10, but so super new compared to any other brands. And in that little time, it's currently, I will say, I'm not afraid to say that it's currently leading the technical clothing in the world. So there are a couple of companies that are on the top of technical hunting clothing, and KUIU is one of them, despite the short period. I think it has been a very disruptive brand since the beginning because it was probably one of the first e-commerce only companies. So the founder, Jason Hairston, viewed that the quality of the products was not limited by the technology, it was limited by the retail price. So the retail price was defining the quality of the product. So, and also that the intermediate people in all the process wasn't adding as much value as on the early days. So he decided to approach and sell directly to the customers which back then for a clothing company was something that no one would have thought about, and that they thought it was crazy. But it has several advantages. Of course, the first one will be cutting markups. So you use better materials and you can use the products you want, because the end price, no matter if you use very expensive materials, still the end price for the clients is going to be reasonable. Also, something that not many people think about is that you can develop product quicker, because you don't sell a bunch of things to shops early on the year. You can, if we can improve a product, you can implement it on the production chain and improve that product right away without having to explain anything to anyone. And that allows you also to release products during the year in many times, because you haven't got compromises of sales or whatever. And that's, I think, one of the reasons it has been able to grow that quickly, because with that situation, it allows you to grow the company really, really fast. And I think that for the topic that we are talking today, that it's very important is that we are in direct contact with our clients. So especially through digital world, we are lucky that we know them very well. So there is a lot of companies that work B2B, that there is so many people in between the process that the company doesn't really know what his client looks like. So they may sell a rifle to New Zealand and they kind of know that the rifle is in New Zealand, but they don't know if it was an old guy, that if the guy hunts big game, small game, what for, if he has money or not. And there is a very strong disconnection, which for us is the opposite. We really know them really well, and we can implement all the digital tools extremely efficiently to connect the sales with the clients. It does also have the big disadvantage of, especially on clothing, that people don't have access to the brand. So a lot of people will say like, hey, how do you pretend to sell online clothing if you cannot try it, you cannot touch the material? There are other products on the industry that I think are easier. I mean, a hunting call, you don't really need the sizing, or I don't know, but clothing, it's something very special. And also you have the challenge that you don't have salespeople on each country. So you don't have a gun shop that when a client comes, does all that sale work of explaining what's the clothing is about, why it's different and all that. And that's, I think, the biggest thing, or what I'm really proud about what Kuyu has done, is telling the story of the brand, which I think it was part of this talk, is how to tell the story to engage with people.
And this will be something we'll come on later as well. I can also tell a little bit about my story, how I came into the digital marketing. At least I was doing the marketing for Blaser for almost 5 years. It was it was from 2005 to 2009. And I moved over to Zeiss, was also there responsible for the international marketing and product marketing. And we recognized, especially when we look into the digital marketing, that we have a lot of problems to use existing tools, which gives us the digital world. Let's say, look at the tools, the tool bag, which gives us Google or Facebook. We were not allowed to use these tools as a rifle manufacturer, or at least if we want to sell rifle scopes on the rifle and to show it on the rifle. If we want to show in a hunting situation, it was still not possible to advertise performance-orientated like CPC or CPI, which normal brands are allowed to do this. But if I am a manufacturer of ammunition or rifles, or my products are related to guns and rifles, then it's not possible for me to do performance marketing and performance marketing. It's a completely new way of marketing. It's a very fair way, as I see, to make marketing, because you pay for a click or you pay for impressions. So you can really see how much money you have to spend to reach a certain audience. And this is one problem or one challenge we were faced with. And as we see, or as we saw, okay, what is the real driver in digital platforms or channels in influencing the the buying decision. At least we all want to sell something. If it's a service, it's a product, we want to sell something. This is the end of the complete funnel. And the question is how we can lead our customers from a certain touch point where he is right now to this sales action. This is at least the story or the experience which we want to create for our customers. I mean, you, Pedro, you want to do it with your clients, and Charlie, you want to give also an experience for the hunters as an audience as well, and your cooperation partners. So I have one really big thing, which when we talk about digital marketing, it's audience. You have to have the right audience, and you need to know where your audience is. Because when I look back 15 years ago, I mean, when I was in the marketing for Blaser, what kind of marketing tools we really used? It was a catalog, a very big catalog. We sent it out. We printed 50,000 of this 2 times a year, and then sent it out to our customers, to the dealers and consumers, and it worked out. And we had a website. It was pretty much very static, and we had the shows. We had advertisement in the 5 magazines in Germany here, and it was enough. It was enough to reach almost 90% of the audience. Yeah. So with very limited channels and limited tools, I was able to reach the biggest part of my audience. Now it's completely different. It's so fragmented. The audience is so fragmented, also due to these small things here. I mean, can you see it? Yeah. We are almost everywhere. I mean, right now we're sitting in a nice environment with a mountain in the back. We could be everywhere. Charlie's in his garden with a chicken around. Pedro normally is in the mountain somewhere in Spain hunting roebucks, and I'm sitting in front of my desk. But we are almost everywhere in the world, and depending on what kind of devices we are using, we are able to receive advertisings or messages at least. And we got retargeted. So we get special information selected for us. And so we have a complete new options to address people, but also to receive information. And this is something where we were in the gun industry first. It was not possible for us because we had to handle some restrictions from the government as well due to advertising laws. We're not allowed to make advertising for rifles or guns in some countries. But it gives you much more opportunities to find the right audience for you. Especially when I look at KUIU. KUIU is a very, very selected audience in between the hunters. And especially when I look at the hunters or the shooting guys, there are so many different competitions. There are so many different ways of hunting. It's the cultures, which is different. Pedro, you said it already. The ways of hunting is different. I can hunt with a bow. I can hunt with a rifle. I can hunt with a shotgun. So depending on what kind of hunter I am, now as a company, I'm able to really address really selected my audience, the right audience for my product. And what does it mean for the companies now? The company is still paying a lot of money like they did it 15 years ago. We go with big magazines, running advertisement. We go with a catalog. We go with a website. And but they have so much loss in there with the audience that they could take maybe 80% of the budget to make targeted marketing. If they really have the right audience, if they know which audience they have to address. This is a chance, but it's also a challenge for the industry. And this is something we want to talk about today. And this is why we are sitting here together with GT Autos. GT Autos, the first product, the first platform we made was Gear Tester. Gear Tester, when I give you a little impression about Gear Tester is a community for product recommendation. Because when I was in Zeiss, we had the problem that especially product reviews were often bought with advertisement. And let's say there was a special tendency to these brands who paid a lot of advertising money. They got better scores in the review results. And what we missed was really the voice of the hunters. We wanted to know, and this is cool, this is Pedro, what you said, you need the direct contact of your customer. You need direct feedback to put it into the development on your product as well. And therefore you need the direct feedback. And this was something where we saw, okay, this is very, very difficult to get. And the existing platforms like Facebook or YouTube, especially Facebook with its groups, it was more negative voice and product bashing than positive, constructive voice on your products. So we wanted to create a platform where hunters can talk about their favorite hunting gear. And this was the first idea we made. And we created an audience in this way, a neutral platform with an audience for all kind of hunters with certain categories: bow hunting, shotgun hunters, night and thermal hunting. And this is what we did. And from there, we created more and more platforms and channels to select the certain niches in the niche of hunting and shooting. And this gave us as a company the possibility to really see, okay, what kind of interest is on this part in this niche, on let's say on shotgun hunting, what kind of interest is, for example, do bow hunters need a rifle scope, yes or no? So we can make interaction as well with our direct customers. And when I compare it with 15 years ago, there was no interaction between the brands and the end consumer, only on shows. But now it's possible to interact digital, on social media, on so many ways and channels and platforms directly with our customer. And that leads us, and especially the brands, that they have to create completely new jobs and new job descriptions. It's a completely new way of doing marketing. And especially when I have my marketing department, I have to really see, okay, what kind of product do I have? What kind of brand I have? And what is my marketing or brand core, and my brand positioning? What are my USPs? And what is my biggest target group I want to reach in this audience, for example? And what kind of messages I should create, and how I came into interaction with this. Charlie, and we talked on Saturday about this topic. You had a very interesting saying about this. Especially with the media and the brands, in terms of what kind of jobs will be created in the brands. And if you want to talk about, I think this is very interesting also for this audience here.
You're going to ask me to remember something from Saturday. I'll do my best. If it comes back to me, I'll say. But look, I want to pick up what you're saying about audience, because again, just looking back over the last 10 years and over our journeys, I mean, I think it's true to say that when I came to see you at Zeiss, we were talking about a way to manage an audience in a very old-fashioned way, like having a spreadsheet with everybody's name and physical address on it and things like that. And I think it's fair to say we have moved from that position now to allowing the big aggregators, the big owners of audience on the web to do this for us. So although you're not allowed to advertise on Facebook and YouTube, you can still express yourself as a hunter there. And I want to get this point in early, actually. So in my opinion, that the hunting trade is now looking at or trying to break down audience, production, endorsement. Pedro is, for me, the perfect kind of branded audience advertising vehicle. He is where everybody is going to be. So at the moment, in fact, in some ways, and you and I are going to be out of a job. We have some audience, we've got good production, we can endorse well, but Pedro is perfect. He's just QU. He does the whole job for one company. And there are lots of reasons why many companies can't have Pedro. I mean, in an ideal world, you buy everything online with one click. And of course, we have a huge number of retailers, and the world revolves around them as well, and for many companies. But to go back to audience, it is about finding the right people. I think that's essential. When we sell on Fieldsports Channel, we sell product placement deals a lot, and we can say, look, if they're watching Fieldsports Channel, there's 9.5 million of them. they're likely to understand or want to go hunting. So, you start with that. There was a period about 8 or 9 years ago when there were some people in the market selling, unlimited numbers of Mexican teenagers or, children from Egypt or something like that, which was not the audience our guys wanted, and they had to get over that. And since then, we've been through a stage of allowing Facebook and YouTube to kind of manage the wider audience for us. So we now think of the audience as a kind of a clump here, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. I think the question I'd like to know I'd like the answer from Pedro is, how do you manage your audience now? I mean, you say you know them personally. Do you really mean that? I mean, can you reach everybody personally who shops with you, or are you still kind of managing them in the way Jan describes, which is to say, we now know that bow hunters want scopes. We now know that people with air guns want binoculars. That sort of idea. Which is it, Pedro?
You're silent.
Sorry, my mic. Yeah. So thanks for the kind words, Charlie. By the way, I promise I will pay you. I will pay you later.
So don't spoil it, Pedro. Don't spoil it.
Yeah. So I think we are lucky because we sell directly to the end consumers to know everything. Everything is digital, so it's not even physical. So they connect online. We know the name. We know the address. We can track them online. We can see where they go, why they look, when they come on the website, when they check something and they don't want it, and in 1 week, hey, what about this? And you can target advertisement. So I think the technology right now, it's scary. I mean, and I'm probably sure that all of you guys have experienced that you talk with a friend something, and suddenly on Instagram there is an advertisement about that, and it's like, I didn't even type it at all. So how come that advertisement is on my phone? So the technology is crazy, and since there is no anyone in between, we are lucky to be able to have a lot of control.
Charlie, is it okay? Charlie? I think Charlie's freezed.
He's in shock.
Yeah.
Answer.
But I mean,
I guess
it's a good face he made.
Yeah.
No, Pedro, I'm completely with you. There are so many options and possibilities to know your customer even better than 15 or 10 years before, because the technology is still there. The question is how we can use this technology for us. How does it make sense for us, and how we can lead these data or information, how we can lead it to sell. And this is
Yeah, I think that there is two things. I mean, one thing is to know your audience and be able to advertise on them, but to grow their desire of buying something, it's not just only about advertisement. It's about telling a story. And I think that Kuyu, in that sense, since the beginning, has done a great job telling the story, so people have the inside desire of buying Kuyu. So it's not direct, or it's not just about advertisement. One thing without the other, I think it just doesn't work. And regarding telling the story of a brand, I think it's very important that you were saying before, is knowing your brand identity. I think a lot of companies, sometimes it feels like they haven't sit down for a few weeks to kind of define their path, what we are, what we want to do, what we want to transmit. Because if the message is not clear and you are sharing a lot of different messages and that, you confuse the people, and at the end you don't reach the core of the people. And in the case of Kuyu, it has been always like very clear. We make the best clothing that we can for mountain hunting. It's very specific. We just target mountain hunters and that they go in very strong hunts. We don't target all the hunters. And I think it's very important, or very different back then and still nowadays, that we have been very transparent with the people. It's like, okay, since we know what we are gonna share all that we do, and we have shared which are our providers, which are how we do things, how we design. We have show the final design of products before the release, still today, no one thinks about a company sharing where he manufactures things. It's like, are you crazy? I mean, how do you share that information? It's because we want to be transparent. We want to show the people, the people want to know the truth and making them part of the journey. And that at the beginning, especially when the company was launched, it made a huge difference. And I think also a very important thing is adding value to the clients. People are tired of getting, of being sold of stuff and getting advertisement and things. You need this and you need this. You need this. Is like add value to the clients. So because if they feel grateful because you have added value to them, they will support you. And there are many ways. In our case, we have focused a lot of educating clients. So they know better what to buy, what are the technologies. Rather than saying, okay, we have the best jacket, we're gonna teach you how a jacket is done, what the materials are, and you decide which is the best jacket. But we know we have the best jacket. So probably not all the companies have the product to do that, but by educating the customer, they feel that you are adding value. And the same way when they prepare for hunts, we are very focused on like adventure hunts with a lot of days, and it's a tough hunt and all that. We want to add value to them by helping them through that journey, how they have to train, how they have to eat, what they have to bring. And most of the things they have to bring are not from us, or we don't sell them, but we just want to help them. Which are the right outfitters? Which are the places to go, no? And after all that, what you become is an expert on the field. You have proven that you know what you're talking about, and that turns out in sales. No, we are involving the people. People are part of the brand, and one thing that a lot of brands do is they like we really value our customers. It's people that they have buy a product, they have trust your brand to take it to the end of the world. They are the best endorsement. I mean, like they are your best ambassadors. It's people that they have paid. You don't have to buy someone testimonial with money because people know that. It's just like our customers. They are the perfect example of our products in use and that they work. So use them, and you will involve them in the brand.
Pedro, I would completely agree with you. And this is one reason why we also created Gear Tester with authentic and honest reviews about the gear. And because then you can allocate these people who can be your real brand ambassador, who are the heavy users. But normally the heavy users are not the guys who write any articles or do anything. They're normally in the woods and they are hunting and testing gear. But there's one thing I really see what you're saying, and my experience is during the last 5 and 6 years, also as a marketing guy, for me it's much easier to make a media plan and to book an advertisement, and okay, the money is gone, but I will be present in a magazine, for example, 50,000 people see it and go through it, and maybe it's like a swipe right and left when you go on Instagram. But it's not really deep and it's not sustainable, I would say. And if you have, for example, what you're saying is you create content, you stand for the brand, you're a heavy user, you explain the people, you live your brand, you live your product, and from the completely product and brand experience, you give him content. You give the customer that, depending on where the customer is, you give him the right answer. Some people didn't know Kuyo or don't know the brand before, so you give him the first, let's say, snack of Kuyu, and which teases him to go more deeper into the brand, maybe to get more information. You inspire him about the brand with your content. And so at least you create new fans of your brand, and these are followers, and these are at the end also your audience. And when they're also willing, if you add the value, they are also willing to add their value in giving you the addresses, their data, and then you can communicate with your audience as well, and you can give them the right offers and the right services, the right products for what they are going to do. And I think this is a win-win situation. But what does it mean for the brands? What does it mean for in marketing? As a marketing manager, I see, okay, it's much easier to spend just the money and say, okay, running an advertisement, I'm fine, I'm in there, I reach certain people. But the market is completely different to 15 years before. There, it was maybe 15 or 20 years, Charlie, as you said it also in the 90s, you had these magazines, and with an advertisement, it worked. If you're a full page ad or double page ad, something like this, it worked. But now you have so many noises. It's so loud outside there. You get marketing messages from everywhere. So it's not enough anymore to just make an advertising message. You have really to convince your customers, and this is only when you add value, like you said, Pedro, and then you have to know your target group. You have to know your customers and to give them also this value. And what does it mean for the marketing departments for the brands? It does mean you have to really think about more what kind of tools, what kind of channels, and what kind of platforms are the right ones for my brand. And what does it mean, as you also said, Pedro, for my brand in general? Because when you don't have a clear message in these days anymore, just a general message, we are the best, for example, nobody interested for this. You have really a clear standpoint. What your brand stands for, what kind of USP you give the customers. And from there, you can create a communication strategy. I think this is also very, very important to have a clear standpoint, a clear market brand core, and then you can create a clear brand message as well and a strategy.
Yeah, I think, Jan, about what you mentioned, I would like to point something is that you mentioned that the heavy users are typically the ones that are not all the time on the platforms and showing themselves. I think in this industry and has got a big problem confusing influencers and opinion leaders. And the industry has focused a lot on Instagrammers, which they may look like they have a lot of reach and a lot of exposure, but they are not opinion leaders. So maybe a guide in Alaska that doesn't have even Instagram, he may have 100 clients, and the clients are going to call him. They are not going to call the influencers. Or maybe there is a freak that knows a lot about guns in the UK, that's the guy that they call all the time when they want to make the decision of buying a gun, and they are not calling the influencer with 100,000 followers. So I think that's an important difference. And about real content creation, I'm a huge believer that is about sharing real stories, and that's something that our brand has done since the beginning. All the product photos are done in the field. All the videos are done in the field on real hands. So it's not just a good-looking guy on his background with a backpack and a rifle crossing a river with a taxidermy mount on his backpack saying that this is the hardcore gear that you have to use. No, the photography since the beginning has been real hands. You see the pants that they are bloody. You see the face of the owner or an employee that it's sweaty, that it's struggling, cold, and that what it turns is to a trustful message, authenticity, and it's proving the point that the gear works. And it gets, at the end, if it's the right content and real stories, it gets people attention. Because when we produce commercials or we produce fake things, when you see a commercial on TV, your attention goes away because it's a commercial. So if you see something very high-end production video with a slow motion, with the camera in front of the hunter, everything is fake. So it's just like, okay, it's beautiful, but it doesn't. But when you see a real story and you see a guy maybe crying or struggling, feel cold or laughing, it's a real story, and that engage with people, and that it's 100 times more powerful than the other.
So maybe I can ask you guys.
Charlie, your microphone is still not activated.
Oh yes.
We see him, but his micro is not.
No, we cannot hear you. It's not working.
Let's try that one.
Yes,
now we go.
Now
yes.
it's working.
Okay. Oh, sorry about that. Okay, so I sort of pick up Pedro's point. Sorry, Rebecca, I'm just going to jump in there, because this is the point where we do better than the magazines. So the magazines are very good at the brand message, or they always were very good at the brand message, which is, isn't this brand wonderful? And saying that, it's a CPM deal, it's a cost per thousand, or CPI deal, Jan, you refer to it as. Now we are in a period where we can do the CPC, the cost per click deal. And at Fieldsports Channel, we break that down into two. So we try and do the beautiful films like Pedro, and I totally agree with you. Every time I see somebody else's film where there's a slow motion fire burning in a forest, I think, uh-oh, that's a bad film. We try and do the beautiful brand film, but we also try and do the short film that is where the consumer is when they're about to make a buying decision. So they've already seen Pedro, they already like the look of the kit, but they want to find out how waterproof is it. And so they go and read 300 words, or they go and look at a very short video, and it is from that point, and this is where I think we're going to go next. Once they've made that decision, we have to manage them from there to the point where they can buy. I suspect Pedro already does this, and I know Jan does this, because Gunfinder is a brilliant idea, I think, and we shall be copying it shamelessly in the UK. But it is establishing a customer journey which we've never been able to do in the media before. I mean, I think this is what's so fabulous about being alive right now.
And depending what kind of strategy I drive in my communication, do I image videos? And I think image is to really to load this brand. I mean, Kuyu, as you said, Pedro, it's 10 years young. It was nothing 10 years ago, and now it's, I would say, really a market leader in ultra lightweight mountain hunting clothing, only with storytelling. This is also what I mean when you want to drive the customer to sales, then you can clearly use the right channels with the right messages, and which are to the audience who are willing to buy, to use this special offer, for example, who are willing to, I can see, is there a customer who want to buy something, who want to spend money? I can address them clearly. And is there guys, for example, who just want to be entertained and inspired? I can also address these guys, this audience separately. And this is a tool which brings the digital platforms, these channels with it, which makes it, especially for marketing departments, marketing managers, very, very good. So depending on what kind of campaign I plan, if I want to launch a new product, if I want to get more traffic on my website, if I want to get better known in the audience with my brand, so I can really control and plan these campaigns and steer them on the point to the right audience. And this is, I would say, a very big advantage. But what does it mean for the brand managers? I mean, Charlie, you made, I think, also the same experience like we did with Gear Tester in terms of promoting digital tools, services, advertising. My experience is that a lot of companies, a lot of brands really don't know where they spend the money into and what kind of success it brings to them. This is also very complex. So it's not like if you spend, for example, let's say 5,000 euros for an advertisement in one pager, and then maybe you get well known, you can, I wouldn't say that the brands still know where the money is going when they spend 5,000 euros for a one pager. But now it's possible to see really if I spend 5,000 euros in a digital marketing campaign, I can really see what's the kickback. I can measure it. I can report it depending on what my goal is on this campaign. And this is, in my opinion, very difficult. I don't know what your experience is, but when I see the advantages of content, of the pictures, the videos, Pedro, you're also creating for the brand, what's in for the brand and what they are willing to pay for it or even not to pay. But they spend 5,000 euros for an advertisement, but 5,000 euros for pictures, videos, and CPC, reach, audience, they're not willing to pay. Instead of it's much more measurable.
Well, they have to understand it, don't they? That's the trouble. And it's very difficult to explain to somebody who has never been fired for advertising in a magazine that this is a better way to do it. So there's so much to explain here. I remember you used to get very cross with me because I was just trying to cram too much into meetings and say you could do this and you could do that. And even my colleagues said, look, we need to try and sell them just 2 pairs of shoes, just 2, and then they choose 1. It's fine. And so it's about simplifying the message. But the possibilities are absolutely endless at the moment. I think what we will reach by looking at the Kuyu experience with Pedro, for example, and what you're doing, Anne, we will reach a point where we will see a very clear passage from the point at which the manufacturer has the product in the warehouse to the point at which the consumer gets the products. And that whole process will be managed by the manufacturer. So people like us or the magazines who rent their audience to the manufacturer will now have their own audience as they do with Kuyu. And people who want to use tools, like good quality production or Gunfinder, they will still buy them in, but I think generally speaking, they will start to develop their own tools to do that job. We're going to see a huge change in retail as a result over the next 5 years. We may see some of the brands go to a subscription model, for example, the high value brands like guns, just as the car companies are. And that you might think is driven by consumer demand. Actually, I think a lot of it is driven by digital marketing and what the possibilities are, what we can possibly do with that.
And maybe I can ask you one question. I am thinking about advertising, which is in the past much more focused on the product the companies would like to sell, so, and not the brand behind. But I am wondering if the consumers who are buying a product are thinking about the brand is behind the product, so employer branding, sustainability, and so on. So all these facts might be very interesting also for the future. What are you thinking about this? Is there a change already, or can we expect this change? So is there a change in the type of advertising, in the messages, or what do you think about that?
I have an answer for that, if I may. I'm sorry, I have an answer for everything.
Charlie.
Okay, so one thing that has changed in the last 10 years enormously is we have gone from a world where people would tell you what to think. From your national TV station, they would tell you the weather, and that was what the weather was going to be. And we now have a situation where you say, I like, you are Pedro, you say, I'm wearing this. If he turns to the camera and says, I couldn't have shot that ibex without my Kuyu, you go, no, I don't believe you. So we've entered a world where the audience is really, they're the ones who are doing the thinking here. We have a very British saying, I'll be the judge of that. You fold your arms and say, I won't do what you tell me, I'll be the judge of that. And that is the motto of the TV viewer now. So I think when it comes to, you're asking, for example, should the brand behave responsibly, look good, look perfect? I don't think they need to as much as they think they need to. I mean, the brands in the hunting industry are very, very careful. We keep telling the gun brands and the optics brands, film in Africa. The weather's fantastic. It's always sunny. The animals are gigantic. The hunts are really exciting. And they go, oh, Cecil the lion, not sure about that. So they're very conservative. Actually, I think filming in Africa is a good idea because I think our audience is fine with that. you're probably not going to sell a Blaser R8 to a vegan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I do think that people want to engage with the brand, but not just as a brand, the people behind it.
Mm-hmm.
It's tricky because if the people behind it are idiots, people are not going to engage with the brand. But if you can share, and I think that's why like the social media networks and the content that people want to see, it's moving for like high-end productions where there is a lot of music and voiceover, to that they want to see the people, the real people behind the video and all that. And with the brands, I think it's the same. They want to see how Charlie is like. They want to see if he's funny, if he gets angry, when things go wrong, that no one is perfect, because sometimes you see videos and content and it's like, yeah, I'm the best hunter in the world. No, we all miss, and that's the way people feel identified, because we are all humans and we all make mistakes and we have a life. And I think it's important for the brands.
It's a new way of delivering trust, I would say. You have different ways to deliver trust to your audience, but at least you have to be part of your audience to understand your audience. And your audience will immediately recognize, as Pedro say, if you are part of the audience, if you're a hunter, if you're a shooter or not. Because it starts, I see it, for example, in other online campaigns, especially on Instagram or social media in general, when companies want to address the hunters as an audience, and they use a picture of a white-tailed buck, and they say in the text, okay, this is a roe deer. I mean, it doesn't work out, and the hunter will recognize immediately, and you can destroy your trust and your reputation within a second with a wrong posting. And so you really have to be careful. This is also a challenge, of course, of digital marketing, because it's much faster, and you reach. We haven't talked about shitstorms, but when I heard Cecile, for example, I mean, it's plus and minus, or pro and con about filming in Africa and what are you showing. But you have to have an eye on that, what you're filming, how you film it, and how you get it into the right scene, also related to your brand. I mean, normally you should have, when you communicate digital, you should have a code of conduct. Do you want to show dead animals? Do you want to show blood? How you want to communicate? You have different ways of different brands, who do it completely different in their way. I personally believe also on the authentic way, like Pedro, like you are doing it. I like it to see how the real world works, but I also like, if the for example, the trophy or the dead animal at the end, it's not just splattered somewhere and then the product is next to it, and this is not the right way of communication. I think there's a better way to show hunting in a good light as well, because Charlie, okay.
Yes. So I think you've got to be quite careful there. So one thing we haven't touched on is if you are anti-hunting all over the world, you believe that all small white rabbits are beautiful and fluffy. If you are pro-hunting, you believe a lot of very different things. You know, German hunting is very different to UK hunting. Americans go to Africa to decorate their houses. I've been hunting in China. They like to wound animals because it keeps them fresh to the kitchen. I don't like that at all, but they would consider that to be perfectly normal. So you have, you can't really achieve a consensus in this. And it might be there are some people who will look at a product sitting on top of a dead lion and say, wow, that's fantastic. I think it's true to say we are telling a very old story. Pedro's Q films, if somebody from the Stone Age was watching them, they would understand them, because it's the story they probably talked about around campfires for 10,000 years. I went out in the morning, it was very difficult, but I got one, that narrative arc. And I think what we do is we can turn things up and down. One of the things we can turn up is what we call the backstory. So why are we hunting this animal? Because it is tasty, damages crops, its horns wouldn't have got on my wall. Whatever, you know, whatever your reasons are, but you need to establish that. And I think actually all brands could probably get away with having the same basic idea, as long as they don't offend their kind of their core, because you still come back to the fact that the audience will judge for themselves what's going on. You cannot tell them anything. They will be looking at it and working it out.
I completely agree with you, Charlie, and I mean, this is what Pedro also saying as a challenge of creating content, or the right content, even if you do advertising or you create the right images, the right videos. Hunting is so regional, different, structured, that the German hunter has a completely different picture of hunting than the Spanish hunter does, or the English hunter does. And what does it mean for the marketing, or for the marketing managers, or for the brands? And that means I have to really to make regional images campaign with local people, to really to address the right audience locally. I cannot play or run the same images or videos from Germany in Spain, for example. It doesn't work out. I mean, this was not really lead to success, I would say, to your audience. And this is what Pedro, what you're saying. It's also much more difficult to create content for a brand. It's much, you have to put much more effort into it, to create pictures, to create videos, to reach really the European hunter, I would say, as a brand. Or what do you say?
Yeah, no, the reason I got hired a few years ago, the founder told me, I'm never going to understand properly Europe. So I need someone that understands the European culture, because the details between a French hunter, a German, and a Spanish, and the UK, it's huge. I mean, I think it was great someone to understand and be realistic and say, I'm not gonna ever understand those differences. We need someone in Europe to give us a hand. So it's super important to understand those. I think creating content sounds great, but it's not easy, because at the end you need to have understand clearly the message of the company. So if you tell someone to create content for you, it really needs to know really needs to understand what you want to serve, because sometimes companies may hire someone, okay, let's do a video, but that guy is not 100% tuned with the philosophy or the soul of the company, and that can make a big difference. You need to create content that attracts your audience. So you really need to know your audience, because we may all think that we know our audience, but maybe it's not that easy to know, no? And you need to produce quality content, which is not easy, but I think it's the future. And I think as you were mentioning, compared to some type of advertisement, I don't think there is advertisement that it's expensive or cheap. There is advertisement that works or that doesn't. So you can make cheap advertisement, but if it doesn't work, so I think there needs to be a change to really understand what you your goal, and try to make a plan to reach that goal.
Especially, right.
So we have one question in the chat. I would like to ask you guys. So hello everyone, it is from Sagir. Apart from traditional digital marketing and you are talking, what about communications and promotion with limitations for firearms? How should brands promote firearms product, especially among dealers, for export sales? No exhibitions, ads are limited, etc. So who would like to give you yes, thank you.
This was one reason actually with these restrictions or limitations why we developed Gear Tester, why we developed Gun Finder or Ad Hunter, which is an advertising network like Google Ads, just for hunting and firearms and ammunition. We created our own network inside the firearms or gun community or hunting community. We built it locally, technically, because there was no way really to use existing platforms and channels like Google, Facebook, YouTube, etc. To promote it to the export. We see right now, I mean, what we're doing right now. Normally we would be in March at the IWA show. Unfortunately, due to COVID-19, we were not able to go to. And what we do now is we do live talks, we do live streaming. And I think this is also a very good way to address the right audience. Use the channels of the IWA show, of the platforms in the countries you want to go to, and set up a live presentation, for example. This is what I see there. Due to the last 12 months, I think everybody got used to live streams and Zoom meetings and webinars. So the people are open-minded now for it. And so I think this is also a good way to make the first step to see, okay, does my brand, is a market for me, for example, to get the first feedback before I go to the show, for example, there, or I make some dealer visits over there.
I agree. I think you need to talk to people who've got a list, a good quality list they're already communicating with. So I would, first thing I would do, I would ring Jan, I would ring Rebecca. I'd speak to us because we have a Fieldsports Channel for Business strand, which is like a trade magazine we send out. I probably wouldn't ring Pedro because he has gone and cut through all this, you know, this dealer nonsense, and he's a specialist in another area.
Yeah. So Pedro, do you have any things to add, or I don't know?
I think Jan and Charlie have more experience in that sense, and thanks out, Charlie, again. I will have to come visit you this year.
But to come back, I made a little notice here. Maybe you can see it here. There is one sentence which stands on, and this is my sentence, or the conclusion at least. When I'm a marketing manager right now, what I have to do, and I wrote down: build your own audience and feed them with the right food. And I think this, in my opinion, brings it on the point. And when it's not a problem to everybody out there if they don't understand the digital marketing or the digital marketing tools, I mean, just give us a call here. We are open for that, and to make the right campaign and to give you the right tools to your hand. And we're also able to create the right content. I mean, Pedro, you from your market, for your European market, for Kuya, you're doing well content. Charlie, you're doing well content. And with GT Autos, we're also producing great content for brands. And so I think we know the audiences in our countries. We know exactly how the hunters are thinking and acting. And use this kind of platforms, use us, use the IWA show to get in contact with the right people. And then we definitely can help you to get more digital in future for your communication, I would say.
Yeah, it would be perfect last words, Jan. So
I was looking on the time.
On the time, yeah. So we have no more questions in the chat right now. So if anybody has a question who would like to be asked to Charlie, Pedro, or to Jan, so last chance to ask your question now in the chat. If there is nothing coming in, so I would like to come to an end with this first IWA Live Talk. So I hope everybody enjoyed it, got new ideas, got new thoughts from Pedro, from Jan, from Charlie. So thank you guys for joining us. So thank you for your time. Thank you for joining our first IWA Live Talk. So I hope it is okay if any questions are coming up later on or the next days. I would like to pass these questions and make the connection to you, Charlie, Jan, and Pedro. I also would like to give you about an overview about what's coming in the next month. So in July, August, and September, we also have the IWA Live Talks and also the month until IWA. But the next 3 months, the topics are already announced. So in July, we are talking about trends in optic and barrel length. So nothing to do with marketing. In August, the topic will be announced shortly. I'm sorry for that, but we are managing this together with the DWJ. It's a German magazine. And in September, we are talking about night sights, thermal imaging, and equipment and silencers. And this talk in September will be held in Lembeck, so in our first public trade fair, the Hubana fair. So there you can be curious. So, and we will record this session also. So you can be part of that in case you cannot come to Hubana in the northern part of Germany. So I would like to say thank you. Enjoy your evening. And thank you for being our guests for today.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.